Welcome back, guys. In today's video, I'm going to talk about how to paint your imagination using AI. Let's get started. So, to paint your imagination, you need to understand how to use AI, or artificial intelligence. There are a lot of programs out right now that utilize AI to bring keywords or phrases or descriptions into reality. So if you had an idea in your head about something that you wanted to paint, you can extract that idea using AI. And these are some of the images that I have put into Midjourney, which is one of the programs that you can use to bring your imagination to life, so to speak. Whenever you're using Midjourney, and I'll show you how to use Midjourney here, you're going to be using Midjourney on Discord. So this is Midjourney. Midjourney you have to use on Discord. I'm not exactly sure why, but that's how they've set it up. They set it up to where you have to have a Discord account and you put all your prompts into here. So I signed up for like a month and I think it allows me to get 200 images pretty much. So where do you want to go after you signed up? You do have to, you get a certain amount of images for free, or at least when I did it. So I started this back in April or August, and you get a certain amount of images, but then after that you have to pay for like a 1-month subscription, and it gives you, pretty much you're paying for 200 images. So you can tell that just in these last few months, because I haven't used it since around August, you can tell in these last few months it's their AI processing has gotten even better. Look, the pizza alchemist. Look at this guy. He's creating pizza and he's an alchemist. It's ridiculous how crazy AI art is getting. I mean, that's sweet. Batman eating pizza. I mean, it's all pretty wild. But if you had that kind of imagination, or if you had some sort of image in your head, you can get very detailed with how you want it to look. Like this one, visual concept of the most beautiful, smart, and sustainable city, photorealistic, cinematic light, high quality, Unreal Engine, hyper detailed, ultra realistic, fine art, octane. You can even get the aspect ratios. You could talk about certain lighting, which I'm not going to get into detail about that. Mine's mainly about taking your imagination, what you're thinking in your mind, and bringing it onto an AI platform to get concept and ideas that you can paint on the canvas. So you're going to type in /imagine, and it's going to bring you to this prompt here. And this is where you can type in whatever and try to render what you're seeing in your mind. So let's say I want to see an orange peeling a banana, and just see what pops up. I mean, really it's as simple as that. And you can get more detailed and more refined, and I'll show you just the basics of how to use Midjourney so that you can understand how to use prompts. But I'm not going to go super into detail about how to use the prompts because I'm not the best at it either. So you can already see there's kind of like a banana and an orange here, but they kind of look mixed together. So something different that you could do is type in an orange with arms and hands, picks up a banana and peels it. Now let's see what we got. So sometimes you have to get very specific about what you want to see, or as specific as possible, so that you can really get a good image. Okay, well, alright, so that probably wasn't the best prompt I could give it, but you can kind of see it'll give you 4 different images here, and from these 4 images you can choose which ones you want to either upscale, which means it's the same image, they're rendering it higher, so they're putting in more detail, or you could do V1, which is, so this would be V1, V2, V3, V4. V1 would give you different variations of this first thumbnail here. If you wanted variations of this one, you'd have to put in V3. So that's just to give you an idea. Now let me go back to the one that I did here. Granted, I didn't have really an image, or I wasn't really thinking of an image when I put in these prompts, you know, my name and high perspective art. I was just doing it just to see what would happen, and I really love this image. So I'm going to break down how to get the most out of an AI image, as in what to look for, what makes AI images good, right? You want to look for depth perception, contrasting colors, color harmony, you know. You want to look at all of these different effects as to what makes it a good image, and I'll be trying to use these AI images to create a original art piece on canvas. So let's check this out. You can see red, blue, yellow. In that red, blue, orange, pink, yellow, all kinds of different tones and hues inside of that yellow. And then it just gets further refined. I think this was upscaled to the max. So look, all these little random marks make it look like leaves and different foliage. And then these highlights of yellow and orange. So I'm really going to try and break this image down. And then I would like to get into taking on other prompts from people in the comments and see if I can get a cool image, and then if so, I will paint that for my next episode. So really, this is just going to be a series on me creating, painting, recreating, or repainting images from AI prompts. So I decided that I wanted to make this video after I already painted the background, but you can see that I pretty much divided the background into some major shapes. So you have Q1, Q2, Q3, and Q4. And when looking at it, the pictures side by side, you can see that there are 3 to 4 distinct shapes depending on how you look at it. The middle is almost connected with or Q2 is almost connected with Q4 in that sense as that shape, but I like to just break Q4 and Q2 apart. So to really get the color and the shapes of the background, I wanted to do it in acrylic because it just makes it a lot quicker, a lot easier. I could do it without really having to think about it, and it dries really quick. And then I want to do more of my refined work with oil. So really, when you're breaking down your AI prompt art, you want to find the biggest shapes first, make those your background, paint every inch of your canvas as good as you can with those colors. So you can see that it starts off with Q2 being the light point, and it spreads from light to dark. So to really get a good sense of depth perception, you want to start farthest away. So I start with Q2, make that the lightest area. So you want to get a lot of white in there. You want to make a very light yellow. And as you're coming back and you start at the background and pull in towards the foreground, you're going to have your yellow turn into light orange to a little bit darker orange to a little bit lighter red to darker red. And you're just going to pull that all the way in to the foreground. And that's one of the things that gives you a really good sense of depth perception. And then your quadrants Q1 and Q3, they also go from light and pull into dark as you're getting further into the foreground. So to really get a good sense of depth perception, you need to have your lights furthest away, and as you're coming closer to your viewer, you're going to get darker and darker. So after you have created your background, or what I like to do after I've done my background in acrylic, is I like to switch it up to oil because I can really do a lot more blending and a lot more detail with oil, and I can really take a little bit more time and really focus in and have that window of blending and refining. So here I'm just trying to get very straight linear lines, because in that AI picture, that AI art that I created on Midjourney, these linear lines really stood out. They really gave you a better sense of perception, starting with the ones closest to the yellow. They had a lot of thinner, lighter, straight lines down. And as you got further into the foreground, you want to make these lines thicker and darker, and that's what that AI picture was doing. So you can see that it goes from light, and as you pull farther into the foreground, it gets darker, with still a little bit of light coming through, which almost gives it a sense of being in a forest with, pockets of light shooting through these darker areas. It's very abstract, and in a sense you can see that there are some very sharp edges, which almost makes it look like it's glass refracting foliage from this foresty type area, which was very hard to get in the painting. But right now I'm just using the palette to pull and refine these lines, try and get them as straight as possible, and try and build that sense of columns in a forest, and really trying to get that image of those straight lines, because I really like those straight lines in that image. So the next thing I wanted to focus on was the foliage in the art, and the foliage almost has this bordered area where it follows these arrows right here that I've drawn on the picture. So this is another example of how it creates depth perception in the painting itself. You want to have small objects further away from you, and as it gets further to the viewer, you want to have them getting bigger and bigger. So you can see here that I am kind of just putting this like green grayish type color near a light, because the light is further away, and I'm kind of blurring it out. I'm just using some tissue and I'm blurring it out, and as I'm coming closer to the viewer, to the foreground, I am making these green gray areas a little bit taller. Some of the marks I'm making a little bit bigger, and once it gets very close to the viewer, they're going to be very big marks. You can see more detail, and that just gives you a better sense of depth perception. So right now I'm really just trying to work on getting a lot of the color onto the canvas, and really trying to get a lot of the things that are you aren't going to really notice as much as the picture progresses. So you want to get all of the more blocky shapes inserted first before you really start working on the detail of this painting, and whatever painting that you determine you want to use for your AI to canvas project. If you are looking for a good sense of depth perception, these are the things that you should be looking for. So I'm pulling the palette knife back out, and I'm just trying to keep some of these lines sharp, and I'm also trying to make some of these lines at the forefront of the picture, closer to the viewer, trying to make them very big so it gives you a good sense of depth perception. They're also going to be a little bit darker, closer to the foreground, because that just creates a better sense of depth perception. So you're really just constantly building layers of different techniques, from shapes to color to tonality, to really make your picture how you want it. And really these are the things that I'm seeing right now in the AI art. So now I've got out my bristle brush. It's a short hair. It doesn't really have a lot of bend to it, but it's good for scratching away this oil paint and really making some cleaner lines, something that I don't have to just wipe away with a napkin or anything. But I'm using it to make this railway, and the railway is another key factor and making the depth perception. So I really wanted to scrape away a lot of that underpainting of oil so that I could make an easy purple line and it's not going to get diluted with the rest of the paint. So after I got that outline of the rail, I wanted to put in a little bit more green before I actually put that railway down, so I could get a better sense of there being things behind it. So I really wanted to make sure that I got some more color, greens, stuff like that in there. I'm doing a lot of random strokes. It doesn't have to be anything very like methodical or thought out for this. In nature, there are a lot of crazy shapes and a lot of room for chaotic marks and strokes, which is what I think made me see a lot of foliage in the AI art. And again, with creating that sense of depth perception, you need a thicker line, a more weighted line near the foreground or closer to the viewer, and closer to your light source or to the horizon line. You're gonna have a thinner line and it should taper out. So that's what I was trying to do with this rail system, whatever this thing is here. It looks like a railway, almost like a handrail or something like that. But really trying to make my lines thicker, so I'm turning my brush closer towards the end so that it's getting the entire flat surface, and when it's close to the light source or to that horizon line, I'm just putting the edge of the brush very thinly to really make a thinner line there. So then you have these I guess guard rails or whatever that are coming down from the handrail area. I really don't know what to call it. Sorry guys, you can grill me in the comments, but yeah, same concept, making them very big closer to the viewer and a lot smaller when they're closer to the horizon. And really that's the main thing to really get the depth perception in this picture, is really getting a sense of when it's further away or closer to the horizon line, it's thinner, it's smaller, it's blurrier, it's less detailed. When you get closer to the viewer, to the foreground, it's bigger, bolder. There are more vibrant colors. So that's what I'm working on now with the handrail. Now for the walkway, I wanted to get a good sense of those. It almost looks like stones that were building this walkway to this light. I really wanted to get that sense of those stones, so mixed up yellows, light yellows, more yellow oranges, then orangish yellow, orange red, and then more reddish type colors. Make sure that you pre-mix all your colors before you start one of your quadrants, but you really want to analyze what colors are there and then try and make those shapes. Right now I'm close to the horizon, so I'm making small shapes, and if you don't see the shapes in the picture, just remember that to get a good sense of depth perception, you need to have smaller shapes towards the horizon and bigger shapes closer to the viewer, the foreground. These all play a factor in creating that sense of depth and perspective. Another thing that I noticed from the art was that, the light, this inner light here, Q2 I think is the section, and Q2, it's mainly yellow with some white, and then there are like subtle other colors, but you really want to get that sense of Q2. If this is a light that's shining out, you really want to get that sense of it shining. So to do that, you need to use that color as highlights for these stones, or I'm using the yellow color as a highlight for this red, orange, yellow brickway area, and it's pretty much just catching the edges of these stones that I'm going to be creating throughout this walkway. So I didn't really know where to go with the rest of these yellow highlights, and that's because I just didn't have pieces of the painting that I needed. So I started doing these darker lines, which almost make it look like these stones that I want to create, or these tiles, whatever they are, they're kind of recessed. So these red, I'm using alizarin crimson here, these very dark red lines are giving a sense of the stones recessing down or coming down and creating separation in the roadway, making cracks and crevices. And really, if you get stuck, like I was getting stuck with the yellow, if you get stuck, go to something else that you notice, go to something else that you can paint, that you've observed, something that you've observed well enough and you know that you can execute on that. Go to that next, and your painting will start to reveal more places that you need to work on. So right now I started working on these crevices because I thought it would help me create more shapes, and as I'm creating more shapes I can figure out where to put these highlights again. So that's what I'm working on right now, is just creating more of these bigger lines closer to the viewer, smaller lines closer to the horizon line. found myself stuck on the roadway again with creating these crevices and the highlights, so I decided to go back to the foliage and create some more vibrant colors and put more vibrant colors into these grayer, patchier areas, just to give it, not really, in a sense it's like a highlight, but I really wanted to just pull out more color of what this foliage could look like. So lighter greens, more yellow greens, more darker greens, dark blue greens. I think I start throwing in some red highlights and yellow highlights, just because you have this very vibrant red walkway and you have this vibrant yellow light shining through. So you're gonna have a little bit of that reflecting, and they show that very well on the AI image that was generated. So I'm just kind of trying to tie that all in there as well, which helps with color harmony. I also give some highlights to the railways, which are just going to be orange, yellows, and maybe some subtle greens, blues, stuff like that, but it's going to be very minute with the greens and blues. I'm finally starting to work on the Q2, or the light area, which I noticed there was a lot of very, very subtle whites, white, blues, greens, stuff like that. So I really try to work on getting those very, very subtle. You have to make sure that they are very, very light, because this is your light source. You don't want to muddy it up with a lot of other colors. I still want it to look like a vibrant yellow, but I also wanted to just get some more of that color that I saw in this AI art image. And you can see me, I'm just dabbing very softly, gently on it. I'm not trying to do anything too crazy. I really wanted to get some of those lighter kind of yellow colors, because right now the yellow is a very deep yellow, it's not a light yellow. So I was trying to get more lightish white, lightish yellow into Q2. Starting to work on the handrail some more, and I'm just putting in highlights of white and yellow. It's not really adding to this railway as much as I would like it to, and that's just because I didn't put enough linseed oil into some of the white, so it wasn't catching on good enough. But just adding some highlights to the handrail area, and then I'm going to go into finishing up the walkway. And just so you guys know, my camera did go off, so whenever you see the walkway again, it's going to look a lot more finished than it did previously. As you can tell with the walkway here, I added on a lot more red and almost like a purple, dark purplish red. I mixed in alizarin crimson and ultramarine blue. Mixed those two together and got this really dark kind of color. And I was playing around with some of these shapes that in the middle, it didn't really seem to fit well, but I didn't want to keep analyzing the AI art because I was just so close to ending, and I really wanted to make it impressionistic more than, you know, realistic to the AI painting itself. I just wanted to find good key concepts that I liked from the painting and try and show them on my own that is on canvas. So here I'm just further refining a lot of these stones. I'm putting in yellow highlights in certain areas. I'm putting in these recessed areas. With these recessed areas, I kind of use a brush to make the lines or the outlines of where they're going to be recessed at, and then I come in with a napkin and kind of blend it in with the rest of the walkway. So I pretty much just do this, and that is the end of my painting, the painting tutorial for the AI. So I really do appreciate you guys watching this. If you found it interesting, if you found any of this helpful, please let me know in the comments below. Like, share, subscribe, and if you want me to do an AI art image and paint it, then write down in the comment section what you want me to type into the prompt. So just say imagine, and then in quotation marks write down the prompt that you want me to use in Midjourney and potentially make in my next painting video. As always guys, I appreciate it. Yeah, and I'll see you guys next time.